Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Week 6, here we are. Can't believe it. Okay. I'm super excited today to be joined by Lucie Madden, the CEO of Letters to a Prescientist, and she will tell you all about it shortly. And so today, the big focus today, after we do our intros and so forth, we'll get into website building. So it'll be very technical slightly. And we're going to get in there. Okay, there's no way around it. Just get in and see the guts of the back end of websites. And I'm going to tap into some of your expertise, Sam, to see what you thought. Okay, so with that, though, I thought we'll first begin by having each of you, and this is your practice run, to tell Lucie what you're working on. Okay, this is your real test. And the shortest few sentences possible, okay? Tell us that problem and what are you trying to do about it, okay? She's never heard, well, I told her a little bit, but not too much. So she will tell me later if it all made sense. So I'm gonna say, Rose, can you start us off?
Okay, I'll do my best. Okay, so hi, my name's Rose. So my project is focusing on coming up with alternative teaching methods for high school science teachers who struggle to come up with different activities and curriculum from their standard ways of teaching. And so my focus is on developing board games to teach difficult concepts to high school students.
Bam, look at that. Okay, Lucie's like, I want more, I want more. Exactly. This is exactly what we want. Okay, Kushbu.
Okay, this is stressful. But hi, so the problem that I'm tackling is I'm kind of trying to answer the question about who a maker is. And it could be as simple as someone who makes. And what I'm trying to get at is I'm kind of trying to centralize a space for makers to come and tell their stories of their processes when they make anything or So the goal is to take away the attention from the final product, but focus on the process that goes behind making, say, an engineering product or an art piece for that matter. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
All right, Sam.
Lucie, just to start off, I want to say I swear I got my letter out on time to my pre-scientist. So I promise you. So I love telling mathematical stories, and I had to learn how to do it myself. And that's because there was no training for it. It turns out there still is absolutely no training for how to tell mathematical stories. And so I decided that if no one else is going to do it, why not me? So I am hoping to put together a set of a retreat for potential mathematical storytellers to learn how to tell stories, and then also give them a platform through my podcast, Relatively Prime, to release those stories.
Boom. All right, Mandy.
Okay, sorry, I'm walking back from the doctor's office, but maybe I'll pause and chat. Okay, so the problem I'm trying to address is, well, we all know that there's a leaky pipeline for women pursuing STEM careers. I'm specifically focusing on developing girl self-confidence at the intersection of their STEM identity and using sports as a mechanism to engage them in STEM and develop their self-efficacy. Yes.
Boom, there you go.
The project's called Sports Feminist.
Sports, that's it. That's, yeah, you guys should have mentioned the names of your projects as well. But Lucie, hopefully that gave you a little flavor of what people are working on. We do have one extra fellow that is developing it's a conference up in rural Kansas this geophysics or geoscientists. Anyway, it's like big. They don't have many STEM conferences there for young people. So she's trying to put together the first one in her community that hasn't taken place yet. But yeah, so everybody, Lucie is a dear friend of mine. We connected, my goodness, many years ago, youngs ago, when LPS was just starting out, and she, in the early stages of LPS, and I'd actually applied to just join their board, and had a wonderful experience, learned so much, met some awesome people. And it was just amazing to see LPS grow to what it is today. And so Lucie, welcome. I was hoping you can just tell them a little bit about yourself and then the organization, and then you guys can ask questions. Lucie has to leave shortly, but I wanted to just make sure you guys got a chance to meet her, and you've seen the website as well, so you know a little bit about what they do. So this would be a chance for you to ask her directly, the CEO of the organization directly. Lucie, welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for having me and for telling me about your projects. They seem really interesting and all important. And Sam, I'm guessing you're a pen pal with LPS? Awesome. So you already know a bit about us, but essentially the program that my organization runs is a snail mail pen pal program between middle school students in low-income communities and STEM professionals from around the world. And we are trying to broaden students' idea of what STEM professionals look like and do at work, to inspire students to begin to see themselves in STEM and imagine all different types of futures that they might have in STEM. And we started in 2010, but we only got our nonprofit status in 2018, actually 2019. So we've only been a nonprofit for a few years, and our first year as a functioning nonprofit that had actual full-time staff was the 2019-2020 school year, which got interrupted by COVID. So it's been an interesting journey since we've actually become a nonprofit with myself, and I have one employee. Her name is Janelle. She's my program manager. And so together we facilitate the pen pal program for what should be about 1,600 students. We haven't been able to match that many this year because of a lot of different challenges with COVID. But yeah, we work directly with science teachers. So we're trying to solve the problem that not all students have access to a high quality and relevant STEM education, or know about all the different types of careers that are available in STEM. And we want to sort of keep students excited about STEM and seeing how it's relevant to their life in middle school, so that they have the opportunity to pursue advanced courses in high school and pursue higher education related to STEM if they want to. So, so that is sort of a really big picture overview. I'm happy to tell you guys about sort of our journey becoming a nonprofit, but I'm curious to know like what would be most useful if you guys just want to ask some questions about what would be useful to know.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. So guys, this is a great conversation. So please, if you have any burning questions, this is it. Just drop them in.
So when you were first developing the program, like how did you figure out which high schools to reach out to, and how long did it take you to grow to where you are today?
Good question. So in terms of the growth, we started as just a classroom project. I did not found the program, but I did get involved the second year. So it started as sort of a teacher who noticed that her students were in a very rural community and didn't have access to meeting a lot of people who worked in STEM careers. And so she wanted to give students the opportunity to talk to people in STEM careers, because she noticed that her students really liked science class, but they weren't like seeing it as like, oh, I can do this for my future. So the first year and the next year were really just like, does anyone want to continue this project? Here's a project that I kind of started. And so it really started as just a volunteer teacher who noticed a need and was like, how do I solve this need? Let me just try this thing. Can I get enough STEM professionals who have interest in writing to my students? And then I tried the program the second year. The original teacher was going to grad school. And so I was actually teaching in a very urban community, but also a low income community. And I was in Durham. So I was in like a big biotech hub, but I noticed that my students, even though they were close in proximity to people who had STEM careers, they weren't really being able to access that network. And so we tried it in an urban community and it worked just as well. And so sort of from there, we determined that the program can kind of be effective in different types of low-income communities in the US. And we really grew very organically at the beginning because we were working on it volunteer. So I was teaching full-time and, I think one of the other really smart things that we had at the beginning was we had a STEM professional who was also a founder. And so we had like the educator perspective and the STEM professional perspective. And I think that was really important in like both curating a program that would work in schools and also curating a volunteer opportunity that people would want, so that we didn't run into like not being able to find enough pen pals, for example, if we created this great program. And so we started in middle school, and we've kind of tried in terms of like your question about how we expanded. At first, it was really organically. We just like reached out to teachers in the US that we had access to, and we started a mailing list really early, which was just like an opportunity for people to like tell us if they were interested. And then we had their emails so that when we did have opportunities like who wants to participate next year or whatever, we would send an email out to the mailing list. We also started very early with Twitter. We've done the other social medias, some of them, in the past like 5 years, but at the very beginning, we started with Twitter and a mailing list. And I think that just allowed us to like collect interest, and then we could reach out when we had opportunities. And we're honestly still trying to figure out if there's an exact grade level that the program really works best in, or, I did some research about I tried to identify like what types of schools we really wanted to be at. And some things I looked at were what the science standards were that were taught. So we haven't exactly followed this, but I thought that like, if we wanted to make a program that teachers could really use, we would want to make it aligned to the standards that they teach. So I tried to basically make like a NGSS, states that use NGSS or have adopted a version of NGSS, not the ones that went rogue and did their own thing, because that would be too hard for us to like feel like what we created would be useful to the teachers. And so that was one of the main criteria. And then I also looked at like the overall state's science scores. And I tried to identify like states where maybe there weren't already a lot of programs that were running. But honestly, it has been difficult to get into some of those states. So for example, like Mississippi and Alabama are states that have been on my list for a number of years, but it's difficult for me to find and talk to teachers that work in those states. So it's been an ongoing process of like really refining who the particular specific audience is, or maybe just like trying enough grade levels that we realize like, hey, this can actually be perfectly effective from grade 5 through grade 9. And there's no reason to like specify any further. But we've kind of just like tried a bunch of things essentially over the years.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's really helpful to know. Just seeing that process of growth and the things that you've tried.
Organic. But you guys heard it, right? The audience targeting, right? Lucie, I'm assuming you guys have a logic model somewhere, right?
We tried to make a logic model, but our program was not founded in a typical way of like, first we conceptualized the idea and then we really planned it out and then we tried it. Like our program was like conceptualized in a very like, there's this need, let me just like do this for my students right now, and maybe not even realizing that the need was so broad. But I will say that we've tested a lot of parts of our model over the years to make sure that like, I was just telling Fanuel that we had an unintentional pilot of electronic mail last year because all of our classes were virtual. And that's a question people ask me all the time is like, why don't you just do virtual mail? It'd be so much quicker and it'd be so much, easier. And so it was my gut feeling that it was really special to have this very personalized letter, and that was like driving a lot of the student engagement and honestly the STEM professional engagement in the program. But I didn't have evidence, and now I have a lot of evidence from STEM professionals and students who are like, we really want to go back to snail mail. Like it was much more special. So now we kind of know that that's like a core part of the model. So I would say like we got more refined over the years. At the beginning, we left the content really open for what they could talk about in their letters. And then we realized there was a ton of variation in what students were getting out of the program. And we wanted to like leave room for creativity, but also standardize a bit. And so we introduced themes for each round. So now it's still personalized, but each student hears about these 4 themes from their STEM professional each round. So it's been a lot of trial and error, sending a lot of surveys, and then taking a lot of time to like say, okay, based on this, what do we think we can improve, or how can we like continue standardizing at like a high level without eliminating the creativity element of it.
Any other question? I do have one final question for you, Lucie, but make sure anybody
I
else
have a
wanna ask
question
further?
too, Lucie.
Yeah, go ahead.
So how can you talk about your process of deciding like the outcomes you wanted to focus on measuring? And like, do you track your students? Like, what's that process? Do you have help from the teachers to like see their progression and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say that I wish we had started this sooner. It would have been way easier to get grant funding if we had started being intentional about collecting data about outcomes sooner. So I recommend you guys focus on this from the beginning. But I think since we had such limited capacity at the start, we were asking a lot of questions at the beginning just to make sure that like students liked the program. Did they, were they interested in talking to their student? And we weren't necessarily getting super clear on what they were learning from their STEM professional. It was more just like, do they feel like they were learning? And so over the past few years, we also surveyed our STEM professionals and our teachers. So we survey all 3. We survey our students, our STEM professionals, and our teachers, and we have for a while. But at the beginning, it was mostly just at the end of the year, like, what did you get out of this experience? And we realized we needed like a baseline. So now we ask some questions of teachers and STEM professionals and a lot of students at the beginning of the year. And we really tried to review our program and, think about what's realistic for this particular intervention or whatever you want to call it. And so, for example, we used to say that our goal with this program was to inspire students to become a STEM professional. And we realized like with this 1-year intervention in middle school, I'm not sure if that's a realistic goal, but we can inspire them to explore future STEM careers. We can broaden their, perception of the people who work in STEM. And so we tried to really get more specific about what can this intervention do in terms of supporting the solution to the problem. And then we tried to find, particularly for the students, externally validated question sets. So we do ask students a lot of questions about STEM identity and trying to understand who they think STEM people are, and also do they see themselves and people like that in STEM, and how does that shift from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We also draw a scientist test, which seems like it could be relevant for a few of your projects. I think it's a really accessible tool. It's basically you ask students to draw a scientist at work, and they basically just get a piece of paper and then they draw a scientist at work and they write a description of their picture. And then we code the pictures to identify things about the identity of the person that they drew, and also the tools and the settings that they drew. And then we can compare those things at the beginning of the year and the end of the year. So we can see, for example, a lot of students draw their STEM professional pen pal at the end of the year. And a lot of the times that means they're drawing more different non-stereotypical type settings or tools than they were at the beginning of the year, when it's like predominantly male chemists blowing things up with beakers. So I think that tool is accessible for students who may not be the strongest writers. And so we've been using that for a few years, and there's a lot of really interesting analysis that I think can be done with that tool. But we've definitely focused so far on student outcomes. A few of our board members have recently pushed me to think more about what the outcomes are for the STEM professionals. So sort of like what Sam's problem of not having access to training to understand how to tell your story or how to share your science. Like we think that probably, and you know, some small amount of survey questions suggest that STEM professionals find our training pretty good, and that they feel like they're a more effective communicator at the end of the program than at the beginning. And so we may sort of try to investigate that further, but I think collecting the pre-post data is a really good place to start, and then trying to find tools or question sets that other people have used and published on. If you can use those, it makes your data less like biased and what you're thinking in your head, rather than like what someone else, you know, it makes it more valid if you can collect data that way.
Thank you, Lucie.
Yeah, so I think you answered my question, Lucie, because I was going to ask, what's your takeaway advice for these, you know, as someone who's leading a STEM organization with a very unique approach to this, right? I don't think there are many others that are using snail mail the way you're using it in this fashion, because you should watch. I mean, the LPS engine is an engine, okay? The back end of this is intense. Let me just tell you. What's your advice, Lucie, as they're getting on their journey to running their own initiatives out there in the world?
Well, let's see. I'll say that I'm going to give two threads, but I'm going to sort of cheat. I'm going to give a thread of advice related to like logistically setting up the organization. And I think that we invested early in my learning of QuickBooks Online and bookkeeping, and like, you know, we early on got access to, I was talking to Faniel about this earlier, like a legal team that was working with us pro bono, and having access to those skills and knowledge. Once we started getting serious about making an organization, were really, really important, and made it so that we were able to set up structures that allowed us to grow quicker. And I think it was tempting to really just focus on the program because that was the most fun, and that's why I left the classroom anyways, not to do bookkeeping. But the investment in those things at the beginning and really like understanding the business plan and thinking through that made it so that we, you know, we are still in existence 2 years into COVID as our first, you know, being our first real years as a nonprofit. So I think that that's my advice related to that, is just like, as tempting as it is to want to neglect those things, they really allow you to access the more fun parts of like the problems you want to help solve. So it's worth like building a website, which I hope you guys did check out our website. We recently redid it. I can't take credit for making it though. You guys are good luck making your websites. I think that's a tall task, but and related, my advice. Yeah, thanks, Sam. I'm trying to think. I think my advice as a founder is just like, you will have to start doing a lot of things before you feel like you really know what you're doing. And so like just getting used to that and trusting that you're gonna figure it out as we go along, and like building a sort of small cohort of people that you can rely on to ask questions like, does this sound crazy? You know, that's really important. And also just like most of the things I've done as a CEO, I've felt like I didn't really know what I was talking about when I started doing them. So I'm not sure if that's great advice, but maybe like a solidarity point of like, I started doing a lot of things before I really felt like I started writing grants before I was really felt like I knew how to write grants. And I started like a monthly giving program when I really didn't know anything about a monthly giving program. And like, and I just started because I knew if I don't get funding for this organization, it's not going to exist. So like, I just was like, well, I got to trust myself to figure it out and have people that will help me figure it out. And so, so yeah, I guess that's my advice, is that you get comfortable with doing things that you don't feel that good at, because you will wear many, many hats as the founder of your initiative.
Well said. I agree. Lucie, thank you so much. Thank you for the extra time. I really appreciate that. And you guys can reach out to Lucie, donate to our organization, and also serve as a pen pal, right? Mentor. They're always in need. So thank you. And for those who are watching this later, reach out to this organization. LPS is absolutely amazing. Okay. I will always continue that. Saying that.
Yeah. And feel free, like if a year from now you want my thoughts on something, I'd be happy to share. I think that not enough leaders of very small organizations are able to connect with each other. So I would be happy to listen and share what my experience has been. If it's helpful, don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome.
And good luck with your project.
Thank you, Lucie. We will take a look at LPS's website for a little bit later today. So,
great. I mean, I did have input on where things went, but I did not design it at all. So I can take no credit there. Cool.
All right. Bye, Lucie.
Good luck, guys. Thanks.
Okay, guys. So hopefully that was inspiring for you guys. You heard that, just, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. As you're going through this, there'll be things that you feel like you have no idea what you're doing, right? Or things are just falling through. Hold steady. Okay. Find that community. I hope even this program is giving you a few railings, right, to keep going. And even after this, right, as I told you before, we're here, right? You can come to all our sessions. You're invited all the time. Okay. Please know that. And I'll keep reminding you of that. Okay, so websites, guys. So one of the things is websites. Why do we even bother about websites? Sam, since you have one, okay, like I do, but what is the point of having a website? Just indulge me, okay? Well, why do you have a website for your initiative in particular?
So I have a number of websites, and some of them are for jokes, but the majority of them are because you need to have a home for your people. Have to be able to find you, and websites are a great way to make sure that people can find you. You also have to have a place to put your content. Websites are a great place to put content, even if that's not how people are going to find you. Even if you never expect anyone to ever go to your website, that you only expect them to see you on TikTok or to, DM you on Instagram or anything like that, you still likely will need to host content somewhere at some point, content that you own. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you have a website, because TikTok's not going to let you download your own content again. Neither are any of the other ones. And so if you want to be able to own your stuff, you have to have a host somewhere. And usually that means you'll also have a website.
So Sam, are you ready for this? I have news for you.
Sure.
Specifically you. I did buy my own domain.
Good, because I was just about to go check and buy it. So
I was like, the session is coming up, so I had forced myself. I was like, okay, I better do it before Tuesday, because Sam might just go and buy this thing and I'll be in trouble. There's nothing on there right now. So fenyamwindy.com, there's nothing on there, but it's a starting place. And I figured I would join you guys on this ride. I've set up many websites, lots of them, but this would be my first like personal one. Never had one. Crazy to think that, right? But guys, I think websites is critical, as Sam said. It's really about showing your content. And if you have not watched Brittany's lecture in the notes, in the curriculum, please do, because she goes into some really great technical stuff that you can explore. And we don't have time to go into all the details here. And I was going to spare you that actually when I thought about it too. But we're going to take a look at a couple of websites and get a flavor, get to see, especially on the landing page. At the bare minimum for you on November 13th, you should at least have a landing page, okay? And at this point, if you're solid in your brand name for your domain, you should get it, okay? Immediately, yesterday, okay? But if you're still going back and forth, what is it gonna be? Well, maybe don't do it yet. But they're not that expensive, right? I think, what, $20-30 tops per year, maybe.
Most .coms are between 13 and 20.
Yeah, 13, 20. And so that ends up being, especially if you add in hosting costs as well on top of it, right? If you're using Bluehost or GoDaddy, whatever it is out there, there are costs associated with this, right? It's not free. So, right? And then if you want to add on, for example, the privacy protection, that's an additional add-on that you can do if you don't want your own personal information to be associated with. Yes, and Sam is saying, do not use GoDaddy. Yeah, we certainly do not use GoDaddy. Sam, what do you use?
There are moral reasons.
There are moral reasons. Okay, there are moral reasons there.
The owner of GoDaddy is a very famous killer of large amounts of animals for sport.
Okay, you heard it here live. Okay, but these are things that you need to do your homework in the back end of things. Also, both the technical side and then also just broadly speaking, right? Just being aware, like Sam shared that information. We use Bluehost. It's been our kind of staple for a really long time, and have lots of websites through there. And it's really easy to set one up, and they integrate, for example, WordPress.org, the less expensive one side of WordPress that basically comes in built in with lots of templates you can install. Same thing with WordPress.com, but way cheaper. Okay, so the backend is, if you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know how to build the technical side, all that fear is taken away. Why Squarespace, WordPress, they've all been designed to assist you so that you can find the right template, install it on your website, and all you have to do is plug in the content. Okay, Sam, you're not using any template that I can see, right? Are you using?
Are you talking on SamuelHansen.com?
Yeah.
So that one's not WordPress. So that one's code. If we post up, that one's WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
That one's WordPress.
Which WordPress.com.org?
I mean, they are. So they're using the WordPress software, which probably means WordPress.org. But I mean, because the WordPress software is open source. I use DreamHost as my hosting because for $12 a month, I get an unlimited number of domains and unlimited storage space on a shared server. So I have 10 or 12 different websites on a same one. So I'm really paying $1 per website.
Yeah. And you
per
heard
month.
Sam saying on a shared server, you can get your own server, but it's more expensive.
Yes.
But if you're always worried if other people are using all the bandwidth and they're eating up yours, don't. Now we're getting really into the technical side of things. You won't even feel it, in a shared space, and it's cheaper, of course. So let's take a look at some websites here to inspire you, and you guys can let me know what you guys think. And I'll show you one of our last cohort's fellow website and that they're running, and it's impressive. I just took a look at it today. I was like, whoa, this is quite different from what we had before. So let me see, I can find it. Where is that page? Okay, it looks like it's hiding away here. But yeah, the websites, it is, oh, there it is. So of course, as you heard already, WordPress.com basically allows these one-click installs that you can do. And you can notice here, they've tried to make this as simple as possible. At this point in time, you should have enough content, like at least know, like, what are you trying to do? What's the problem? How are you gonna at least try to articulate the message to the wider world? The key thing, and this is what Brittany probably mentioned in the lecture, is just understand what is your objective. What are you trying to do, right? And who is the main person? Are you just trying to tell people what you're doing, or is there refunctionality to it, right? I'll show you the Journal of Stories in Science website where we needed to have functionality. We want people to be able to see the story, to read the stories, but also be able to search for the stories. So the search function was a huge component of our website. And we invested time and money to make sure that thing worked and never crashed, right? All the bells and whistles, the colors, didn't care so much. The engine was our differentiator that we cared a lot about. So you can go in here, lots of and I haven't taken a look in a while, but you can take your pick and set up an account. And again, you guys have funding to do this. There is the WordPress.org side of things. And again, as Sam mentioned, you can get this through Bluehost and many other hosting agencies that can provide you ways to get plugged in. I prefer more control. The WordPress.org gives you way more control to the code. WordPress.com does not. Also, Wix is the other platform. I used Wix a long time ago. Very heavy HTML5. Can't really do much in the back end. Super slow, at least the time when I had it, and really, really expensive. So didn't want to do that. So WordPress is just orders of magnitude cheaper. Other ones, let's see here. So this is the Letters to Prescientist website. They just redid their entire website. And again, I think the Wayback Machine probably has a timestamp of this website too. You can take a look, but just look at this, right? Quickly, you have this hero image in the front. They call this hero images when you have this big thing in the front. And you already know what they're trying to do, inspiring students to explore a future in STEM. In your workbooks, remember that, I think question 7, I believe, right? What is like a one-liner of some kind, right? For your initiatives. This is why, right? Because this is where you could use it potentially, right? There's an intentionality to this too, where we hope that these exercises give you this content to just plug into your initiatives and your websites and other places. And then there's some sort of description about what LPS is, and you'd be amazed. So this looks so simple, right? As Lucie mentioned, it costs a lot of money and time to just do it this simply, right? I can already see sweat, blood, and tears to get this like this, right? And there's an action item here, like donate now. So there is something that you want people to do, right? For them, they want people to donate. And that thing is right there and it works. And you can see here what drives our work. And many websites have different sort of questions here, or points, what we do, who we are. Tell the story. Tell that story. And as someone who's viewing this, I'm intrigued. I'm like, oh, cool. What drives our work? What else is there? The power of human connection. Oh, there's some actual quotes from people that I'm reading. Notice I'm still scrolling down, right? Still scrolling, creating an impact. I'm like, wow, what is the impact? I'm still scrolling. Hear from us, done, right? And that's basically their landing page that then links to the rest of the website. Now, you guys are going to be just launching, so you won't have like a million things, but that landing page can literally tell the entire story in one page. You don't even need an extensive amount. You heard Lucie mention about signups, right? Those listservs earlier on was hugely important. And this is where you can start building it, right? In your one pager, like sign up now to be in the know when this thing is launched or whatever. Right? You can create those action items very quickly. We'll get into the business end of things later in a week or two regarding like the donate button. What can you do this right now, especially if you don't have a structure? It gets complicated. And that's where I think we can discuss that when we cross that bridge. But there are some fiscal sponsors out there you could use, and we'll talk more about that in a little while. So I told you about our journal. I wanted, if you have not seen our journal, again, same thing, some hero image. It did not look like this when we launched, okay? As always, it's trial and error. You try things, you see what works, what doesn't work, okay? But ultimately, there's some big hero image. What is our belief for us? And then look at it. So we have 3 things here. Some people are saying, oh, maybe you have too many things confusing a person. We care that people search. I told you about this, right? Search function is critical. We also want people to submit a story. So yeah, that's there too. And then we want people to be reading and so forth. So building a reading list. And you can track these on the back end. So when you're building your websites, and Sam, I'm sure you have all sorts of analytics on the back end of this thing. No, you don't. Interesting.
No, I use the typical Jetpack ones that are built into WordPress. I don't have much more than that because podcasts are much more download driven than they are website driven.
Right. So that's the thing too. So for websites, you can definitely, so Google Analytics is the kind of standard, if you will, but WordPress as well has its own built-in tools. The beauty about Google is I think you get this beautiful dashboard that I'll show you that you can then, again, depending on what your objective is, what is your objective? Are you trying to get eyeballs on this thing? You want them to do something, right? And do you want to know if they're doing it? So you need to have a way of tracking that information, right? And where they're coming from. If this information is important to you, you better have a way of tracking it and keeping that in check. So you notice here, I'm scrolling down our mission. We have some numbers now, right? By the way, very close. We're gonna have a party when we reach 200. Still waiting on those extra 3 stories. But yeah, some numbers that are useful. And then very quickly, we want people to start reading, explore the database, blah, 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 right? Different modes and all sorts of things. Again, it did not look like this when we launched. And then we do have our supporters page, for example, here. So I do encourage you all. I sent you the logos, for example, for SAI. And as you add other elements, definitely consider having this, because this, again, shows people, first of all, who's supporting this. And then if they're already someone who is looking to support it, like, ooh, okay, I want to join this group of people, right? That is supporting. Sam, I think in your website, one of them, you had a long list of individuals, right? In addition to organizations, which are also
so that was because it was funded through Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So there was no, I've never had any organizational funding.
Oh, okay.
So it's always been individual funders.
Got it. But I think that's it. We used to do the same thing too with our individual donors. We'll list them at the end of our report and just say thank you. That's something that I think it's a nice thing to do for sure. And then another journal I wanted to show you guys, the Journal of Emerging Investigators. This is a group based over here in Boston. Another really great organization. Again, very quickly, what is it, right? It's a science journal and mentorship program publishing research by middle and high school scientists. Done. Right? That very short snippet, and then they have actions. Submit, learn about the mini PhD program, ask a scientist, blah, 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 blah. And you scroll down very quickly, it goes into the actual content, okay, and the videos and so forth. All right. And again, ultimately, it's about what do you want people to do on your website? What is the goal? What is your objective? Okay, and again, I hear the sponsors and other people. One of our fellows from last cohort, Sefik, so I worked with him directly. He was my mentee. So this is his website. Again, some big, bold thing there. A research-based professional development program for science teachers. So he is in the UK. Notice the program spelling. And then again, you start scrolling out. What do we do? What we do, right? Co-constructing grid-based science education, blah, blah, right? As a viewer, I'm like, oh, what is this thing? And I'll keep scrolling. I'm like, how we do it? Curriculum development, implementation, evaluation, okay? And then program first cohort. And this is actually, I didn't know this. This is news to me, actually. So it's wonderful to see this out there. This is why I want you guys to have a website. So when you do updates, make sure you put them on there, right? And people can see what you're up to. Photos are they tell a million, as you know, a million stories. So definitely put that out there. Who we are and the people. Hey, say hi's there. And this is all still one page, right? And so there are tons of templates that do this. So you really don't have to, don't make the task like bigger than it actually needs to be, right? It's really about think about what do you need people to do on your website. As Sam mentioned, Twitter, and really you kind of can download information. Think of it as really as an action item, people to do, right? You want to go on your website, you want them to join, for example, your Twitter page or something, right? Become a follower, but you have a domain, you have a central nature where people can come in and figure out what they want to do from that portal. Let's see, and then the logos as well. Notice that for each of these, so Inquiry Lab, so he created this logo as well. And then Journal of Emerging Investigators. Let me see if I can put this here. There's some logo somewhere. Yep, there it is. Stories in Science was very simple. I made this like in 2 seconds. Actually, it was the S. That was it. Nothing fancy. Okay, nothing fancy. Fun fact, I did submit this for a trademark, Stories in Science. Okay, and the USPTO. Didn't quite work that well, but still listed on their register as a supplement in the supplemental register. But those are things you can do earlier on when we were trying to buy the domain. Another fun fact, storiedscience.com was not available. So if you actually go to .com, it's something else entirely. Actually, is this still us? Oh, it is still us. My goodness. At the beginning, it wasn't available. So we were struggling like to fight with them, not fight with them, but in terms of Google, you know, Google, when you start getting a new domain name, if you don't have like the other side, .com, .org, I usually just buy them all out. Sam, I don't know if you do this, but I usually,
I don't have enough money to buy all of them. I have my joke domains I want to purchase.
I usually just purchase them straight out, so that way there's no competition. Perhaps, and the two main ones are .org and .com. So as you've seen already, you guys have gone to our website, SystemaPC.org. It's quite a big website, and it took a long time to get all the information. For us, the objective here is to let people know what we're doing, so they can apply to our programs. They can learn about what up-to-date news and so forth. It becomes really about showcasing information, right? So notice again, same thing. Who are we? What are we trying to become? I have a big action item here, exploring the projects for our residents and so forth. And again, you start scrolling down. As you can tell, I'm very big on numbers. So, and them rolling up and down all the time. And this is something you can do as you begin to grow and you get some information. You can put these things out there for people, what's happening, the vehicles, the projects, and these are they're coming through there. Publications from our community, how we work. And mind you, if you really keep a close eye on this website, these sections keep moving around. I'm always like switching and experimenting, right? What's working. Now, on the back end of this, so for me, I care a lot about what people are doing on the website. And the analytics are hugely important. We want people to be visiting, for example, our donate page. So our donate button up here, very big. So we can keep, you can put a tracker on each one, and then you can see from your Google Analytics, like, are people clicking it? How long are they on the website? Do they come in and 98% of them bounce straight out, for example? Or do they stick around and are really reading the content? So that these numbers become really useful, especially depending on what your website is doing. For the Journal of Stories in Science, we want to know how long people are spending like reading these stories. And sometimes it's scary. Like, what, 30 seconds? No way, right? No way. But this is data, then you look at it holistically and see if it makes sense, and so forth. So I hope you don't get scared by this, right? This is taking this. We launched STEM advocacy in 2015 when we actually got the domain, 2015. So it's a slow accumulation of information that takes time with that. Let's see, what else am I forgetting? The analytics, just if you're curious, let's see if I can show them. The back end of the portal is really nice. Let's switch it. Just to convince you that it's a nice thing to have. And I'll show you for the journal in particular. Let's see here. This one, okay. You know, things like I told you, users, sessions, the bounce rate, and these things. You can just get some really nice dashboards, right? And figure out if stuff is happening, what's broken down. Like we had a downtime here, a website tracking system stopped working. And I just happened to notice it because I was looking at this. And then I was like, oh, something happened to the website. Let me go and try and fix it. And I figured it out, okay? Where people are coming from, you know, roughly. It doesn't tell you about who they are. It just tells you where the ping came from. And again, depending on what your website is about, for us, for the journal, we wanted to know, are we reaching, how broad is our reach, right? And this is in the past 7 days. You can change it, do like 90 days, see the whole world, yay. But again, for us, this is one of the metrics looking at people and where they're coming from. But anyway, the rest of it, you can install slowly. The back end, the WordPress, I don't want to just completely square you guys on WordPress. I think you should do your homework, figure out what's the right platform for you. Okay, and Squarespace is one, WordPress, Wix. But I would recommend WordPress, Bluehost as a host as well. But Sam put in some extra ones in the chat there to explore. But first thing is first, get that domain name. Okay, how many of you actually have one now for your projects at this time? Not yet. All right. Action item, okay? Next week, if you can. It's scary, but try to get one. If it's a mistake, it's okay. They're not that expensive, and just don't renew next time. So it becomes that easy. Questions, comments?
Okay, I had a question on like when you purchase it, like
Mm-hmm.
because should we go .org? Like straight from the beginning?
That's a good question. I would do, because most of your initiatives are .org-ish, right? Nonprofit. .org is typically nonprofit domain. .com is commercial, hence com, right? Funding, making money. So yeah, I think .org is probably, if you want people to just associate you already with the nonprofit side of the equation.
Sure. And then to follow, go ahead, Sam.
Oh, yeah, I have a few other opinions on this. Most people will automatically put .com at the end of their URLs. They just will. That's pretty known behavior. Also, don't forget all of the really awesome new top-level domains there are now. There's a lot of really great ones. Like, I know none of us are doing this, but if any of us were doing a coffee-related thing, .coffee is a domain now. .show is a domain. I remember in the early days of Reply All, when they had a Hover sponsorship deal, they had a different .show every single episode that tied into their thing. So like they had limo.show. I know, and so like there are a bunch of different things. So it is always worth, like, if you think you have a cool one or one that somehow spells out. I was working on a conference, the STEM Librarian Collaborative. We shortened to STEMlibCo, and so we got the domain stemlib.co because like that's a cool domain to have. And then we also got stemlib.com and .org and forwarded those on to stemlib.co, because whenever you get various websites, you can buy multiple domains and then have them all forward to a single domain to make sure that you get everyone landing at the same one.
That's right. So you notice there when I did storiesinScience.org and .com, they both went to the same place. That's what Sam is talking about. You can have them forward. And this is an easy function you can do, and any hosting company can do this. But yeah, you can do .space. Kushbu has been entertaining the idea of maker.con.space, right? .io. I mean, there's many, and Sam, as you know, they're much cheaper. Like .org.com, like are really expensive.
Oh,
right?
some of those top level, the new ones are real expensive.
Yeah. But some of them are like .space are super cheap, whereby you can just get them for a fraction of the cost.
Apparently, .accountant is one. I haven't seen.
I mean, at this point,
yet.
why not, right? At this point, why not, right? So let's just see here. We'll do this for fun.
.cat was one for a long time. It's for things. It's like .us, but for Catalonia. And the rule was you had to include at least one link to something from the Catalonian government in it.
Yeah. Okay. So you see here, .net is available. So if I was really fussy, I'll probably get it just in case someone takes it and starts doing weird stuff. .tech, .website, .online. And you notice here, so when you add domain privacy and protection, you see how the costs start adding up slowly, right? So it's $11.88 here per year.
Has anyone purchased via Google domains? I know like that's what I used. You like purchased my website, my personal one, and then I built it on Google Sites, and like that worked really well for me for my personal website. But I think functionality wise, I have to go and play around with it again.
Right.
But
Right.
is there any benefit for doing?
It's a functionality. Google Sites. I used to have a Google site a long time ago. It's just less functionality and options compared to the well-established, Squarespace and other platforms.
So
like
the principle is like kind of the same. Wherever you buy your domain from, you have your domain, right? And then you build your website on something else and like put them together.
You don't have to. Most hosters are also registrars.
Right.
Okay. I do that because I prefer having mine separate. I use Hover. Hover has some better privacy, just rules out of the box. And so I don't have to worry as much about some of the Whois stuff through Hover. But yeah, I just always use Hover for all of mine. Yep. Oh, yeah, there you go. Oh, 514, that must be the first year. Like if you want .science, it's a premium domain. So it's just 514 one time. Because it's 26 per year, so that 514 is only that first purchase, apparently.
Look at that, intense, huh? So you guys are seeing this live. This is it.
Yeah, and Hover is really fun too, because they will try to take whatever you type in and like try to make it into domain. Oh, like Bluehost is, or domains.google.com is doing with that first one. Stories in .science. For some odd reason, that one doesn't have the 514 upcharge.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Oh, someone must already own the other one, and that's the price.
So the prices will be different. Like you can shop around by different domain purchasing sites.
Yeah, different registrars will have slightly different prices, but there is generally a minimum that you will hit.
Okay.
Yeah, like the 10. Well, it depends, right? Which one? But to Sam's earlier point, I try to just have them all very personally in one space. Like the host and the registrar in like one domain, because then if you have issues, so this is the beauty about Bluehost, if you run into problems with the website, they have that as a functionality built in. so I can contact them and say, listen, my website is down. Can you help me? Blah, 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 right? It's all in one place, all inclusive, all inclusive resorts, right? It's easy. You don't have to go outside. This is it, all right? Bluehost, Google. Yeah, I haven't actually personally used it. I don't know. They're somewhat of a newer comer, but they're very powerful too, right? In themselves. Great question.
Oh, also, I feel like another plug for doing it all in the same place. So I was buying domains on a separate site and then rerouting it to my website. Now you got to be careful there, because then if you type in whatever it is your domain name is, if you don't have like the SSL certificate set up, it's going to be like, oh, Bitdefender or whatever, has identified this website. So if you have everything routing, like if you have it all in one package, I feel like it's all figured out and you don't have to fuss with that, which is nice.
The SSL certificate should never need to touch your registrar. That should live exclusively on your host, as long as you have your DNS route set up correctly. So
yeah, I didn't have the route set up correctly. So, it depends on how involved you want to get in with doing that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, with Hover, like Hover and DreamHost, whenever I purchase a new one, I have to copy and paste 3 things, and then it's all set up. And one thing I will say definitely for DreamHost is that they will give you a free TrueCrypt certificate for every domain. So they will give you that SSL certificate for free on any site you host through them, which is not been true everywhere.
Yeah, Bluehost is the same thing. SSL certificates are free.
What's SSL certificate?
It's the thing.
Long story short,
what gives you the S at HTTPS, which is what you want. Like, there's going to become a point where browsers are going to start blocking all non-secured websites. Some are already almost doing that as it is. And so you want to make sure that you have SSL certificates for your sites.
Secure sockets layer. If you wanted to know.
Yes, that's what it is. I knew it was something like that.
It's just certificate, right? It's like a security thing. If you ever look at your browser, it suddenly gives it like a nice, it's like, yeah, it's like detects it and it's like more secure, more trustworthy, and all these things.
It provides the ability for public key exchanges between your browser and the server. Right. And therefore, all of the data that goes between the browser, your browser at home, and the server is encrypted with that public key, because your browser has a key, and then the SSL provides that secondary key. And so that allows for the RSA handshake at the beginning. Well, technically, the Diffie-Hellman handshake at the beginning.
Yeah, so like if you don't have it, it'll be like, oh, it's blocked this page for you if you have any like like that. And so if someone's trying to get to your website, they're like, oh, I'm not going on here. It seems sus. So
yeah,
you want to make sure you have that, so that doesn't
good to know.
Yeah. Again, most of these hosting companies, they'll just have it in there built in.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they'll just say like, unsecure. Do you want to secure this? And you hit a button.
Enable. Like that's the only technical thing you have to do. Is click the button. Enable, right?
Make sure you do that.
Yeah, you
just
don't
make sure you do it.
Yeah, you don't need to be as down in the weeds as I tend to be with my stuff.
Yeah. Now for the website, again, just as a final point, again, I like tough control. Okay, I want to go in there. I like to see the actual code. Right? I'm sure Sam does too, and edit and mess around with it. It's my personal preference, and that for you, where you are, again, just to figure out where you are in that. And some like Wix doesn't allow you to do that. WordPress.com doesn't either. WordPress.org through Bluehost does, so you can have more control. The only problem with more control is more time. Okay, if you kind of just want to have everything done, one-stop shop, and WordPress.org will mean more invasive. Like, you need to be in charge. You need to make sure that the right patches and plugins are in place, right?
You can, okay, so there is a way to fix that. And to not do it for no extra money. So if you use one of the one-click WordPress installs through a host like Bluehost, DreamHost, any of these others, and you use WordPress that way, and then you go to WordPress.com and create a user there, you can register your third-party WordPress site with them, and you can set up an account called Jetpack. Jetpack is free, and it will monitor your site for uptime, as well as automatically update all of your plugins, and your host will usually update the WordPress install for you. At least DreamHost does automatically in the background when there's new WordPress stuff. They'll do it with your PHP too. Like they just want to make sure everything on their server is up to date, because if it's not, that means their server is at risk. Like they have a reason to want to do that. But like all the plugins and things, WordPress will update those for you automatically if you just register your site at WordPress.com, even if it's not a WordPress.com site and it's not something you have to pay for. I actually got a notification during this meeting from WordPress.com that some of my plugins had been upgraded or updated thanks to them. So you can be very, very hands-off.
If you want. I'm super hands-on. So Jetpack for me is I blew it up. I completely deleted the sucker because it was sucking up life out of my website. However, you guys, when you're starting off, I think the Jetpack is the way to go. It updates these things automatically. You can't be very hands-off with this. You really, really can. I just tend to be possessive. And
are you going in and editing the PHP for all of the pages?
No. But I mean, most of those, like the updates, like you have to go in there. It will tell you, oh, these need updates.
Yeah.
So, but you still have to go in there at some frequency and like do them. And you can do them as a collective and just update everything. It's just I'm not doing it through Jetpack, right? Jetpack kind of does it for you automatically. I prefer to just get in there, check what's going on. Is the website still working? Sometimes this thing is down and you don't know. I'm like, oh crap. I tend to just live there once in a while. So don't get nervous. I know we threw a lot of stuff out there. I was not a website person when I started. I still am not. Okay, I'll say that right now. I'm not, but I'm willing to learn. As you heard from Lucie, you're going to do things that you're very uncomfortable with. You're going to do this, right? You're going to go in WordPress and be like, what on earth is happening? I don't know, but that's okay, right? Just be willing to learn and be willing to say, I don't know. And this is where you bring a team of people. Am I a social media person? No, but I had to do it for like 5 years, right? And then finally I said, oh, I need to bring in someone who can now take it to the next level, because I knew I couldn't do it, right? Even for our website, I know I'm already at the limit. And soon enough, once you have enough funding, this is where the funding is a limit. You can bring in someone like a webmaster that can then take your website to the next level. LPS just did this, right, with their website. And they paid a big, some unknown amount of money to bring that website to what it is now. And it's a worthwhile investment. It's a worthwhile investment because it makes a huge difference in terms of getting donors in. Again, depending on what your objective is, donors, eyeballs, signups, exposure, right? Overall. Okay, that's all I have for today. As you head into this week, think about your comms plan. I think you all should have that domain name purchased this week, something, okay, loaded, just saved or something, because if you keep delaying, it'll take you longer to get there. Work on your traction, either talking to people, surveying, get some pieces of data that's telling you that you're on the right path. That's really what the traction slide is. Okay, teachers you've talked to, what are they saying? That's your traction slide. If you have already have some elements, I think Sam, you already have some posted. I guess in your case, you're doing the training, so, but you already have some examples, right, through your own podcast you can talk about and say, hey, we have some test cases here you can look at, right? And we have received X number of downloads. You already have that. But you don't fully need it. Some of you are still early stage, a completely early stage. So the number of people you're talking to, what they've said, you can put that down as well. Keep working on your pitch decks. Don't wait till the last minute. We're going to be a week 9 tomorrow. Yesterday. Okay, so the time is running by really fast. We will be sending you the second payment, second seed stipend, part of your package of 3 shortly. So look out for that in your accounts. Okay, any last minute questions? No? Okay, this Thursday, join a club. It's optional. Feel free to stop by if you want. We're going to be discussing, there's a PDF of the paper, there's a report from the NSF that came out recently. We're just going to drink some coffee, tea, and chat. All right, everybody. Thanks.